Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your hurricane outlook and discussion, the first one of the start to the hurricane season here in the Atlantic Basin, June the 1st, 2016. Let's begin by taking a look at the first 10 days of the month and the points of origin. I showed this yesterday, but I figured I would revisit it again today, as this highlights the area that we typically watch this time of year. These are the origins of tropical storms and hurricanes over the past 100-plus years, and you can see in the Atlantic Basin, it's clustered pretty much west of 70 degrees longitude here and south of 30 degrees latitude. Nothing in this 10-day time frame out in the deep tropics, and of course the eastern Pacific, pretty busy this time of the year as well. And I do see something developing out that way. We'll talk about that in a moment. First, what's going on in the Atlantic? Well, right now we have the leftovers of Bonnie, the remnants there, 25 miles per hour winds associated with that, air pressure 1010 millibars, and it's sitting just off the North Carolina coast. You can see that here on the visible satellite shot. A little bit of spiral banding trying to get associated again with the system, but water temperatures in this area just a little bit too cool for this to really do much. A few intermittent bursts of deeper convection here to the south and east of Cape Lookout, southwest of Cape Hatteras. Cape Fear is down here. You can tell I'm excited that it's hurricane season. I'm ready to go and get this thing started, so to speak. Expecting a busy year, and so I'm a little anxious. But really the water temperature is not going to support much development. And also, you see these clouds moving away like this? That's a sign of air spreading out and moving away from these thunderstorms instead of towards them. Divergence down at the surface, air spreading out, instead of air coming in. Inflow, that's more like an outflow boundary. In fact, that's exactly what that is, from collapsing convection, as you can see here. And so that's not a sign of something that is organizing. It just doesn't have enough energy, and it's just not going to do much except produce the occasional heavy rain shower in any of these bursts of convection that you get with some of these bands on the northwest side. And then as this moves up past Cape Hatteras and on into the Atlantic, it'll again produce an occasional burst of heavier rain and a little bit of a gusty wind situation, but that's about it, and we won't have to worry about this too much more. In the eastern Pacific, almost a tropical depression now, 60% over the next 48 hours for development and 90% in the 5-day. In fact, I have a better satellite picture here. This is Invest Area 91E in the eastern Pacific. It's located right here. Pretty good turning that you can see here, counterclockwise rotation, embedded within the intertropical convergence zone, and just this general low pressure convergence area, kind of like a monsoon trough, but I'm not sure if this qualifies for such. Interesting, look at this with the air currents up here coming off the cold water of the North Pacific. What a line of demarcation there. I'll take my red telestration away. It's just kind of cool to see that. What an amazing time when we can see such an incredible detail in satellite imagery. I don't even know exactly what that is. I guess that's more stable, dry air getting pushed south probably by high pressure, I would assume. Kind of like a hairdryer blowing away the moisture on your mirror in the bathroom is one way to look at it. Certainly is a very stable air mass through here, no convection whatsoever. But I digress. I got off the topic. So we'll watch what's happening in the Pacific. No worries, because if it develops, and it probably will, it's going to head away from Mexico. Meanwhile, a lot of chatter starting to show up on the hurricane blogosphere, that I like to call it, about the 5-day forecast, showing a yellow area outlined here in the southern Gulf of Mexico, extreme northwest Caribbean Sea, and the Hurricane Center giving this a 20% chance of developing over the next few days. What is it? Well, they're looking for the possibility of a broad low-pressure area to take shape, but then they talk about the fact that any additional development of the low should be slow to occur as it moves to the north-northeast. Now, that may be the case, and it might not develop much, but this area through here, Florida, could be in for some very heavy rain. So lately it's been Texas. Now we have to start shifting our attention towards Florida. I understand that Lake Okeechobee is running high, so this is the time of year that we have to watch. And you remember, if we go back to this map, this is the area right around in here where we would expect to see development. You don't have a lot over history, but there's enough that this certainly fits the mold, and we can see that here, something to watch over the next 5 days. Currently, however, and this is a big reason why we're not going to see much develop with the leftovers of Bonnie, just the upper air pattern generally not very favorable. Upper level winds not entirely hostile off the Carolina coast, but there's other factors at play that have already gone over. Sea surface temperatures not as warm as they could be, like if it was September, for example. And if it was September, this would probably still be a tropical storm and probably intensifying. But elsewhere, and let me just outline what's what. The mid-Atlantic states, the Carolina coast, there's Florida, going around the Gulf Coast, etc., down towards Central America, and then South America is down here. And basically what we have is cyclonic flow for the most part, trophiness here, a little bit of a ridge sitting out over the subtropical Atlantic, and then everything else is just westerly winds blowing across, very unfavorable, which is not unexpected this time of year. Even down here in the Caribbean Sea, 50 knots of wind coming out of the west, and we call that wind shear, not favorable for development. But this might change, and if we look at the GFS 850 millibar level, this is 5,000 feet in the atmosphere, and the energy, what we call the vorticity or spin, and this is the initial map, and you can see there's the leftovers of Bonnie. I don't know why that jumped like that. Let's try again. There's the leftovers of Bonnie, and you can see that round nature to the vorticity signature and the counterclockwise flow of the wind barbs in here. And watch what happens as I go through the frames over the next 5 days. And really we're going to pay attention eventually to what goes on down here. Bonnie, the remnants will move on out, and then we'll see what starts to try to develop down in the Gulf of Mexico. So as I advance through the frames, if they'll ever go, let's try again. All right. So go through the frames here. These are every 3 hours, pretty high resolution stuff. This is now valid tomorrow, so this is Thursday as we go through the day. Then we get on into Friday, and through the weekend, we're now beyond 72 hours. This is 96 hours, and look what we start to see, a turning of the wind barbs down here counterclockwise and showing general low pressure trying to develop, and a little bit of energy showing up here at the 5,000 foot level, what we call the 850 millibar field of the model. And if this will just keep going, that'll be nice. So this is 99, 100 hours, etc. And when we get out to 120 hours, just general broad low pressure down here, just like they mentioned. No one area consolidating. I mean, look, you have all these lobes of energy hanging around, maybe one trying to separate here. So this tells me that nothing's going to organize quickly. And so it goes without saying that unless that changes, this shouldn't be much more than a rainmaker, and that's still a problem, obviously, as this heads up probably towards Florida. So it's something to keep an eye on. It's far enough out into the future that there's a lot of uncertainty with it. Things can change. The models are just starting to get a handle on it. But so far, nothing's jumping out that suggests a major concern for a tropical storm or a hurricane threat. So that's how it looks today. Let's see how it looks tomorrow. I'll be doing these updates, of course, every day, as long as there's something to talk about. And with that being said, that's generally how this will work, the hurricane outlook and discussion. Throughout the hurricane season, when we have stuff to talk about, I'll be in each day, sometimes more than once a day if it warrants. And then when we know that there's a period coming up where everything's going to be dead, there's a big SAL outbreak over the Atlantic, the Saharan air layer, for example, just dominating, probably in July. That's typically when that happens. Then I'm going to take a few days off. But until then, yeah, I'll be here every day working hard on your behalf to try to tell you what I know. And if you couple that with your other trusted sources out there, and you know which ones those are, then you should be ready to go for the hurricane season. So there you have it. All right, I'll keep an eye on things in the Eastern Pacific and what might or might not be brewing in the Atlantic Basin side of things. And I'll be back tomorrow. So have a good rest of your Wednesday. I got to remember what day of the week it is. I am Mark Setheth for HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks as always for tuning in, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow.